So, sorry for the inconvenience. Dear audience, Dharwad Katte organizes talks both in English and Kannada. Since last 2 years, Dharwad Katte continuously organizing talks on various aspects of literature, culture, and other issues on language and literature, and also the birth anniversary of eminent scholars. In this connection, from July 1st, Dharwad Katte is going to begin two lecture series on makers of world theatre, revisiting Shakespeare's theatre. For this August gathering, we have with us Honorable Professor P. Kattimani, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Central Tribal University, Vijayanagaram, Andhra Pradesh. We have our special guest, Professor N.S. Gundur, Chairman, Department of Studies and Research in English, Tumkur University, Tumkur. And the President, Dharwad Katte, Professor Basavaraj Donur, Dean, Registrar, Central University of Karnataka. As I already told you, Dharwad Katte conducts programs, talks both in Kannada and in English. First, for his few words, I request Professor N.S. Gundur sir to speak. Sir, please. Sir, please unmute your mic. Sir, please unmute your mic.
Yeah. Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir. Please.
Good evening, everybody. Professor T.B. Kattimani, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Central Tribal University, Vijayanagaram. Professor Basavaraj Donur, Dean, Registrar, Central University of Karnataka. Respected scholars and eminent writers and translators, Vijayalakshmi Danareddy, Prakash Balikai Square. There are two Prakash Balikais. Members of Dharwad Katte, my students and colleagues. I'm happy to see some of very eminent personalities on the screen. Professor O.L. Nagbhushan Swami. Sir, I'm happy you are here. And Venkatagiri Dalwai, sir, Mantesh Patil, even my students, Professor Vikram Vishaji, and many of my friends. It gives me immense pleasure to be part of this inauguration of special lecture series, Makers of the World Theatre and Revisiting Shakespeare's Theatre. I'll just speak a few words about theatre in general and its relationship with us as Homo sapiens, as Indians, as Kannadigas, as academics, researchers, students, so on and so forth. I want to explore this relationship. I won't take more than 15 to 20 minutes. But before I proceed further, let me congratulate the Dharwad Katte for initiating this series. Many eminent scholars in the forthcoming sessions will throw light on the theme, and I hope we will get a deeper understanding of the world theatre and Shakespeare studies too. I am not a theatre expert, nor do I have any expertise in Shakespeare theatre. Given the kind of scholarly output on theatre and Shakespeare studies, in fact, I am not worthy of being invited to speak on theatre and Shakespeare. Since this is a formal inauguration, I think I'm invited out of Dharwad Katte's love for me. Especially Professor Basavaraj Donur has a soft corner for me, and he keeps inviting to Dharwad Katte, even though I resist, sir, it is not appropriate to frequently come on this platform. Anyway, instead of presenting some novel ideas, new arguments, I would like to share some of the familiar ideas which we already know. And I think I am repeating them because they are useful for us. I am not presenting any new argument, new hypothesis. There is already in the academia, in the knowledge system, in this field, and I'm going to represent those ideas because I believe some ideas are worth repeating. And throughout my talk, I would like to use the term theatre in a much broader sense to denote performing arts, stage, playwriting, playwright, play as a text, etc., etc. Then my question is, what is our relationship with theatre? Our means human beings' relationship with theatre. Since time immemorial, theatre has been one of our primordial creations. Even though theatre, in a much broader sense, has assumed a new avatara in modern times as an art form, as an entertainment form, it is true and true the core of human existence. What I want to reiterate is that, unlike films, cinemas of today, theatre is intimately connected with our divine and spiritual dimension, existence. Bharata Muni's Natya Shastra gives us an idea of Nataka as an essential part of our life. It is considered on par with Vedas. If we take the case of the birth of English theatre, it originated in the heart of the church. The staging of short religious enactments gradually moved from the heart of the church to the porch and then to the yard. Students of English literature know it well, how the religious dramaturgy gradually evolved as a theatre, as an art form, as a secular practice properly in the hands of university wits who prepared a ground for William Shakespeare the Great. Perhaps there might be cultures without cinema, but there may not be a culture without dramaturgy, performing arts. Often we come across people comparing life to or with drama. In ಡೇ ಟು ಡೇ ಲೈಫ್ ಜೀವನ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ನಾಟಕಪ ಅನ್ನುವ ಮಾತನ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ತೇವೆ ನಾವು. ಬಟ್ ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಅಪೋಸಿಟ್. ಜೀವನ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಅಲ್ರಿ, ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ರಿ ಅನ್ನುವ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಕೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. ಲೈಫ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಸಿನಿಮಾ, ವೇರ್ ಆಸ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಆರ್ ಈಸ್ ಡ್ರಾಮಾ. I think we many times think of ourselves as Hamlet, not as Rajnikant, taking so many dimensions and violating all the laws of physics. Just to draw a crude comparison, I would like to put it like this. If the cinema is the cultural logic of capitalism, theater has been our spiritual need. I think, therefore, theater can save our lives on this planet. Cinema cannot go beyond stardom and box office hit. Moreover, theater is live, and every performance is an experiment. And you know what cinema is. Once it is shot, that's fine. But in case of drama, what happens? The same characters, the same people enact the same drama on different occasions differently. There is a kind of direct communication, give and take between the actors on the stage and the spectators. And I request you to reflect on your own experience of watching plays on the stage live, not on YouTube, and also your experience of watching Rajnikant on the cinema screen. Therefore, completely the cinema is the logic of capitalism. We cannot think of cinema without capitalist mode of production, whatever you call. But theater is deeply rooted in the spiritual existence of Homo sapiens. Therefore, if theater, Nataka, produces good actors, cinema will produce stars who may not know what it means to act. The point I'm trying to make is our life is intimately connected with the practice of theater. Instead of proceeding further about theater merely as an art form, as a literary form, I would like to draw the attention of most of the students here are literature students. Therefore, they might have heard the literary aspect of the theater in classes. Therefore, I would like to draw your attention towards sociology, how sociology looks at theater. Sociologists like Irving Goffman have tried to understand our social life with the help of the metaphor of theater. In his book, The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, Goffman conceives everyday life as theater. What happens, according to Goffman, in theater also happens in everyday life. According to him, like actors, we choose our costume and dialogues to persuade others in everyday life. If I am appearing before certain guests in my house, I wear certain clothes and I also use dialogues, I use props and backgrounds. The same things, everyday life setting is similar to what takes place on the theater. There are props and backgrounds in both theater and everyday life. And in everyday life also, it is presentation. On the stage also, it is presentation. Therefore, what is common to both the theater and everyday life is the question of presentation, representation. In everyday life, we present ourselves the way actors on stage present themselves. There are many theorists, many anthropologists like Victor Turner also have studied theater in order to make sense of culture. If sociologists like Goffman use theater as metaphor, thinkers like Kenneth Burke think that life itself is theater. I am not going to elaborate on this point here. If you are interested, you may go to sociological perspectives on dramaturgy. But I'm just mentioning this point because this is largely neglected when we read plays and we talk about Elizabethan theater, Brechtian theater, or Indian theater. Largely, we forget this sociological dimension of dramaturgy. It's interesting. Therefore, the point I'm trying to make is this. Theater, drama is very, very intimate to human existence. In Indian tradition, often rituals are compared to theater. There is no difference between the ritual and the theater. They share many modalities, many challenges, and similar structure. Girish Karnad's Agni Mattu Male, The Fire and the Rain, Agni Varsha is a fine example to show the connection between theater and yajna. Friends, the history of world theater, it's a very vast subject. The history of world theater might reveal new ideas about our relationship with theater. African experience might be different. Japanese experience might be different. Even in Indian tradition, in my own, school days, I watched Doddata, Sannata in my village. They might reveal new ideas about our relationship with theater. But here, I would like to come back to the Indian context where theater activities, theater practices, theater institutions have shaped the modern India. Many scholars have studied the connection between the making of our nation, India, and novel as a form. Novel as narrating and reconstructing in our imagination India as a nation. And I would like to extend the same argument to theater activities in India. Institutions like the National School of Drama at New Delhi, in Karnataka, Rangayana, organizations like IFTA, Samudaya, and of course, Ninasam, and such institutions, repertories like Sanehalli Siva Sanchara, and many, we can give a lot of examples. All these institutions have not only entertained us, but also they have shaped our sensibilities. In fact, one should write the social history of modern theater in India. While thinking about this topic, I'm right now in Dharwad. I was just, I went back to 20 years. I was a student in Dharwad. More than the plays I read in the English department for the sake of examination, the plays I watched now we have Srijana, then the only, hall for staging theatre was Dr. Mallikarjun Mansoor Bhavan and our Vidyavardhaka Sangha. There I watched many plays and they have made a lasting impact on me and my classmates and my generation. I cannot forget some of the shows, some of the experiments. It began with, the first play I watched in Mallikarjun Mansoor Bhavan was Nina Sam's Antigone. P. Lankesh translated it into Kannada. Then our MA in English coincided with Dr. Girish Karnad receiving Jnanapita Award, and Dharwad organized Karnad's Play Festival. One of the memorable experiences and the impact of that festival, is that my daughter's name is Nittile. I still remember in Mallikarjun Mansoor, Bhavan, one character, that time I couldn't understand, make sense of Agnimattu Male. And I still remember Nittile, that character shouting at Nittile. And of course, Yenigi Nataraj acted Dario pose, Kasa Hoditevranna, Bettalevesha. That song is very popular, Kasa Hoditevranna. That is Dario pose Kannada version, Bettalevesha. I can't forget them. And in fact, Professor Siddhalinga Patanashetty translated Hindi play Chora Charana Dasa. In fact, they have educated me more than the curriculum in the English department at Karnataka University, Dharwad, with due respect to my teachers and my MA in English degree. Friends, my talk today is not focused. I am jumping from one point to another, since it is a formal talk on the occasion of inauguration. Please don't consider that I am presenting a research paper. Therefore, I come to the last point, that is William Shakespeare. Again, I would like to ask this question. When in 21st century in Karnataka, on Dharwad Katte platform, we are all talking about Shakespeare. My question is, what is our relationship with Shakespeare? When we talk about Shakespeare in India, in our case in Karnataka, we should remember that we Kannadigas have a certain relationship with Shakespeare. I'm making this point because mostly in English department, Shakespeare is taught very, very wrongly. Even, of course, for that matter, T.S. Eliot or Wordsworth. See, the entire tradition of English theatre and English literature is connected with our modern subjectivity, we as Kannadigas. And we read Shakespeare without any reference to our land, our culture, our language. Therefore, it is my firm belief that we cannot, in fact, we should not approach Shakespeare the way his people, Westerners, approach him. Because we shouldn't forget the fact that Shakespeare has shaped our modernity. We owe much to early translations of Shakespeare. Why our scholars translated Shakespeare? What was our cultural necessity? These questions are important. The point I'm trying to make is that when studying Shakespeare, we should be aware of the fact that where we are standing, what is our relationship with Shakespeare? Our translators might have found him very useful to our culture. And I also remember to have read elsewhere, even Professor J.S. Amoor once told me about this. A merchant in Hubli translated a play by Shakespeare. Scholars might find fault with the merchant's art of translation, but it is a vexing question. Why did he try to do it amidst his busy business. When we teach Shakespeare, we should not forget the fact that we are our literature, our theaters, in fact, are intimately connected with Shakespeare's pen and theater. I remember once Girish Karnad himself in Dharwad said, in his typical characteristic way, our competition is not with any of our contemporaries like Kambar, Shivaprakash. We all compete with that great playwright Shakespeare. Friends, unless we understand our primordial relationship with theater, and unless we study and enact Shakespeare in relation to our modern subjectivities, no talk either of theater or of Shakespeare will be useful beyond answering some questions in the examination of literature departments. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir, for refreshing us on word theatre and on Shakespeare. Now, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Central Tribal University, Professor Tejasvi Katimili sir is with us. I welcome you, sir. I request
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
request you to inaugurate the two lecture series symbolically and give the inauguration speech. Sir, please.
Thank you, Prakash. Good evening to all. I'm sorry I'm late because of my other schedules. I congratulate the Harvard Katte for untiringly working on many series of lectures online and offline. Professor Gundur was talking about Shakespeare and his influence on world dramas and dramatists. Yes, his sonnets influenced poets, his dramas influenced dramatists and stage artists and stage activists. The translations of Shakespeare dramas in Indian languages ha, they have created a new awareness in the modern theater activities and modern dramas. Professor Gundur was rightly quoted one example regarding how Carnard was talking about who he is competing with mm, Shakespeare. One way, the best dramatists, best artists are always keep their in their mind regarding they should be like Shakespeare. Their dramas should be like Shakespeare. Their poetry should be like sonnets of Shakespeare. Shakespeare is like a tradition which is always a big tradition in Natya Shastra, Indian Natya Shastra. Many writers, many dramatists, many artists are always working for Indian Natya Shastra, like Shakespeare. One or the other way, in the whole on the whole globe, he's always alive. Once, many people, talks about how uh, Shakespearean drama. Shakespeare, his roles are alive in England, in many plays, in many operas, and in one or the other way. Shakespeare dramas have influenced Indian dramas, not only dramas, Indian, even a smallest writers, smallest poets who have been influenced by Shakespeare. Sometime, who might not have read Shakespeare, but somehow, somewhere, a textbook book, a small lesson will be there about Shakespeare, maybe in Kannada, maybe in Telugu, maybe in Tamil, even in many tribal languages, people are, talking about, writing about Shakespearean age, Shakespearean dramas, and Shakespearean poetry. I congratulate Harvard Katte, especially Professor Dono, to make such events always, so that a dialogue on epics, a dialogue on, a great writers, great dramatists like Shakespeare or Kalidasa or other writers should be always alive, and the young generation should be always be in touch with Shakespearean dramas and or Abhigyana Shakuntalam or any other classical writers, classical dramatists, new wave and new inspiration from such people will definitely inspire the young generation to create much more things, many more things, and excel. With these few words, I happily inaugurate the series. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable words. Now I request President Dharwad Katte, Professor Basavaraj Donur sir, Registrar Central University of Karnataka, to throw light upon these two lecture series, which will begin from first week of July. Sir, please.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Am I audible, Prakash?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Good evening to you. First of all, I thank Professor Tejashwi Kattimari, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Central Tribal University of Andhra Pradesh. Despite his very hectic and busy schedule, he could find time for his short but inaugural speech. Today, I am with in this tribal he could find time. Skudur, my long-time friend, an academic of good high repute, a speech on theatre, about the importance and significance of theatre, and he asked two important questions. One about the theatre, especially its sociological dimension. GB theatre. Many theatre theatre personalities across the globe have about this very important dimension of theatre, of which other forms of literature may not have, I think. And the Harvard Katte, I received two lecture series, and we had inaugural function today. One on Maker series is on Shakespeare, revisiting Shakespeare's theatre. Makers of modern world theatre. These lectures will be held in Kannada on the first two Saturdays of every month. First Saturday and second Saturday. Please remember these two. These are the small details. I'm sure Dr. Prakash will talk about it at the end. I remembered, so I'm sharing these details, small details with you in the beginning to start with. So from July onwards, I think 2nd July onwards, every month, first 2 Saturdays, we will be arranging lectures on Kannada, and we are starting a new series, Makers of Modern World Theatre. I think Dr. Tarini Shubhadaini, an important Kannada writer, poet, and researcher, will be giving her talk, followed by O.L. Nagbhushan Swami, our very senior writer. And last 2 Saturdays, third Saturday and fourth Saturday, we will be arranging lectures on Shakespeare. The Katte proposes to organize 40 lectures on Shakespeare, and it will go for 2 years, almost 2 years. Because we can arrange 24 lectures in 1 year, almost 1.5 years. We'll be arranging lectures on Shakespeare. And lectures on modern theatre will be in Kannada. First 2 weeks Kannada and last 2 weeks English. I request the viewers to please make a note of it. And we welcome all of you to attend all our lectures, whether it's one series, last 2 weeks English, second series. In case we get to the fifth Saturday in any particular month, then on that Saturday, we'll be arranging some special program like life narrative, Anubhava Katana. Anubhava Katana can be in English. We have contacted Arundhati Nag and others for Anubhava Katana. And Dharwad Katte is expanding its base and planning so many literary culture activities with the help of the committed organizing team and with the support of writers from the state of Karnataka and also writers from rest of the country. We have been trying to establish our contact with the Western audience and Western. These are our projects, and we're also starting an online journal in Kannada to start with, and we may start an online journal in English. Dharwad Katte monthly magazine. And the Dharwad Katte will also give away 2 literary awards. These are activities. And Prakash will give you some more information. Theatre and Shakespeare, I think I can make some sir is also there, and you can interact with anyone of them. About theatre, has made extremely beautiful. I mean, N.S. Kundur has made extremely beautiful, and the relationship between theatre and the society. 20 years ago, I met a Chennai-based director in one of the conferences, wherein he made a statement which got registered in my mind. So, to start with, he made a statement. It's not; these are not the exact words. This is the gist of what he has said. I have forgotten his name as well. He says, "I shall not direct a play. I shall not direct a play or any play if it does not have any contemporary importance or significance." This is an important statement that he has made. And G.B. Shaw, Bertolt Brecht, and all important writers talk about this important connection between theatre and the contemporary society, theatre and the contemporary time. Theatre is always contemporary, whether it is Shakespeare's theatre or W.B. Yeats' theatre, anybody's theatre. It will never lose its contemporary significance. It's always contemporary. Okay, and characters on the stage directly speak to the audience. They speak to the audience. They address the audience straight. And they touch upon the important socio-political, cultural world. And this contemporaneity can never become old. Shakespeare is as fresh to us today as he was for the audience of 16th century. A writer like Shakespeare can never lose his appeal and his relevance to the present world. He was so fresh to us. He is so fresh to us today. I'm sure that he will be equally fresh to the audience of the 22nd century or 23rd century. That genius can never become old. This is first class genius. We have to seriously think about the nature of Shakespeare's genius or Kalidasa's genius, and why they are still relevant, and why they still appeal to us, why we still respond and react to Shakespeare's theatre. I shall give you my own example. I must thank Professor T.V. England. I went to England, and my ambition was to spend a lot of time in London and just out at the streets of the banks of the river and the Globe Theatre and all. I was able to watch only one play in Globe Theatre, King Lear. And I can never forget the audience's response to the staging of the play. It's a long play, one of the biggest plays of Shakespeare. And, it's a 3-hour performance. And for 3 hours, I tell you, there were about more than 1,000 audience in the theater. There was pin drop silence. No, all mobiles were off, cameras were off. Everybody was focusing on the stage and what was happening on the stage. And they became one with King Lear. And they laughed when Lear laughed, and they cried when Lear cried, and they became one with Lear. So much so that two old women fainted. When Lear got into trouble and when the crisis was going on, they were unable to see this performance on the stage, and they were fainted and they were shifted to the hospital. I was an eyewitness. And you can never expect this to happen in a country like India, because we are not, as audience, as readers, we are not very, very sensitive to what happens on the stage. So we laugh when we are supposed to cry, right? And we may not laugh when we are supposed to laugh. So what I'm trying to say is that even today, the whole of England reacts and responds to Shakespeare. Wherever you go, you find people talking about Shakespeare. They are never tired of talking of Shakespeare. And in London, you go to any posh area like Bond, James Bond Road, you may not find many people. If you go to Stratford, it looks like Kashi. People in town. For the people of England, Stratford is like a Kashi to them. They go there, they see his house, and there are there are actors at his residence who act out his scenes and dialogues and so on. So this is how people react and respond to Shakespeare. I'm not appreciated. Drama is not staged. Okay, in all the countries, people react very sharply to Shakespeare and Shakespeare's world. And theater, as I said in the beginning, theater is theater becomes active. Theater becomes meaningful only when it establishes its connection with the audience. And Bertolt Brecht, one of very powerful modern makers of modern world theatre, with his epic theatre, makes a statement in one of his books, in one of his essays, Brecht on theatre, very important book. He writes a theatre which fails to establish a living contact with its audience is a nonsense. He calls it nonsense. If a theatre fails to establish a living contact with its audience, is a nonsense. Right? Unlike the short story writers or the poets and the novelists, they are staged. If they have something to do with the contemporary reality or contemporary personalities, have to face a lot of problems, not just in India. In India, plays are banned. Their treatment of contemporary social, political, religious reality. You find such instances across the globe, even in French and German theatre too. So Shakespeare, I may be in August or September, observations on this occasion. Then, if you want, you can interact with Gundur and others. Shakespeare talks a lot about the nature of stage and play in his plays. Hamlet makes a very important statement about the play. In Hamlet, Hamlet speaks. The play is the thing wherein I can catch conscience of the king. Says, with the help of the play, I can make my uncle Claudius understand that I know the fact that he is the killer of my father. He says, play is the thing. Thing means what? Thing means it's an instrument. The play is an instrument. The play is a weapon. The play is a medium with which I can catch the conscience of the king. Conscience here. Conscience means I can find out from his expressions, from his response, from his facial reactions, from his eyes, whether he has committed the crime or not, whether he is guilty of murdering his own brother or not. In fact, he succeeds in Hamlet in identifying the fact through a play. And in Carnot's The Fire and the Rain, Gundur has mentioned this play a couple of times in his presentation today. The Fire and Rain, I like The Fire and the Rain next to Tughlaq and Ayati. Tughlaq and Ayati. Talidanda is also an important play of Girish Carnot. So I like Carnot only in his mythological plays and historical plays, not his social plays, social or political plays. And we find this in The Fire and the Rain. Agnimatumade also wants to expose his brother to the whole world. Because he knows he is the one who killed his father and established the fact that he didn't kill, but his younger brother Aravasu killed. So now Aravasu wants to establish the elder brother who is now conducting Yajna. Aravasu did it, and he succeeds. And Carnot also makes use of theatre in his plays to establish certain facts and certain things. And Carnot, all said and done, Girish Carnot is an important playwright in Kannada, and he had a lot of personal respect for Shakespeare. Kundu said that I don't compete with my contemporary writer, and my competition is only with Shakespeare. But Kambar doesn't say like that. He says, I never think of Shakespeare at all. For me, Shakespeare is not important. For me, Shakespeare does not exist at all. For me, what exists is folk theater. So folk theater and folk tales and folk motifs and so on. This will not. This will not make us, show less interest in Shakespeare. So Shakespeare is a genius which does not fade away at all. Sharpness, its contemporary significance, and so on. It has no death at all. Just, the finest talent in the whole world. And Kirtnath Kurtkoti, who was my guru and my research supervisor, used to tell me about the importance of Shakespeare, why Shakespeare becomes so important to us. He used to say that Shakespeare is like all his characters, and he is like none of his characters. So, and he also used to say that the talent, Shakespeare's genius, can be traced in his living language. Language is very important. So anybody can fall in love with the Shakespeare's language instantly. And I have started reading all his plays afresh. And that beauty you don't find in any playwright. Of course, Kalidas is also a very important Indian genius. If you don't read Shakespeare, you never become a good English teacher. You must read Shakespeare. You must understand his language, the beauty of his language. Theater, Shakespeare's theater is in his language. If you miss language, then you miss the extremely beautiful, wonderful, mesmerizing Shakespeare's world altogether. So, I have come to the last part of my presentation. Today it's no presentation. It's Gundu's presentation that we all have heard. Shakespeare, has answers to a lot of our questions. And I'm sure that the scholars talking on Shakespeare in the days to come make us understand what really life is, what the world is, and about human relations and the engagement with our fate and so on. And I thank the organizers of organizing these. With these remarks of mine, I call it a day, and over to Dr. Prakash Parekh.
Thank you, sir. There is an announcement. After the end of these two series, we are going to distribute certificates. Who will attend all the talks? So for them, we are going to distribute certificates. The beginning of July, first and second Saturdays, we have talks in Kannada. First week of July, that is on 2nd, we have talk by Dr. Tarini Shubhadayini on Anton Chekhov. On 9th, that is second week of July, second Saturday, we have a talk by Professor O.L. Nagabhushan Swami, sir, on Samuel Beckett. Followed by the English series, which will begin with Professor Amit Kumar sir's talk. Professor Amit Kumar sir, Professor of English, EFLU, Hyderabad. Dear audience, before I call it a day, it is a time to thank all the dignitaries, Professor Tejasvi Katimani, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Central Tribal University, Andhra Pradesh, who has inaugurated these two lecture series. I thank Professor Tejasvi Katimani on behalf of Dharwad Katte and all the audience. Thank you, sir. I also thank our chief guest, Professor N.S. Gundur, Chairman, Department of English, Tumkur University, Tumkur. I thank Professor Basavaraj Donur, sir, President, Dharwad Katte, Registrar, Central University of Karnataka, who is the backbone of the event, who is making it possible to reach to you. I thank our media persons, both the print media and electronic media, who share, who take all our events to you. I also thank the very part and parcel of our Dharwad Katte, the audience who are with us on this virtual platform and also on our social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channel, and also in all the WhatsApp groups. I thank the members of Dharwad Katte, especially Srimati Vijayalakshmi Don Reddy, General Secretary, Dharwad Katte, Treasurer Prakash Balekar from Dharwad, Tejasvi Rangaswamy, Rohit, Bhagyama, and the whole team. Dear audience, we meet on second Saturday of July, sharp at 6 o'clock, with Dr. Tarini Shubhadayani to listen her talk on Anton Chekhov. Thank you one and all for being with us. Have a great day. Good night.